What is up with the Chocolatiers? Back with another video today. I want to cover Alone in the Dark 2024. Now, Alone in the Dark stars David Harbour and Jodie Comer. They are actually going to a house. Jodie Comer is looking for her uncle, I believe it's her uncle. Don't fact check me on that. And she's hired David Harbour, who is a private investigator / retired cop, something like that, PI, whatever you would, to help her investigate his disappearance. And so you kind of get into like this Bayou type, like almost like Resident Evil type kind of investigative storytelling. Now, this game, I do want to take time to talk about the developers. It was developed by Pieces Entertainment and produced by THQ Nordic. Now, everybody knows THQ Nordic. They're still doing good. They're still doing fine. But Pieces was actually shut down because of this game's poor sales. And I really hate that because I did buy this game at launch. I just didn't have time to get around to it because I had stuff like Final Fantasy that I was playing. Helldivers came out like a month before this and stuff like that. But now that I am catching up on my backlog this year, since I have a little bit of free time, since nothing's really coming out this summer, I decided to go on and play this. And I can actually say without a shadow of a doubt that this game is not as bad as what you've heard. Now, outside of story, I want to cover gameplay first. This game is clunky. I do want to say that it's not the best. If you play it and you've played other third-person camera from the back type of games, like maybe like a God of War, Uncharted, Resident Evil, for example, you're gonna find this gameplay kind of clunky and kind of stiff. It's not fun to do any of the combat segments unless you do have a gun, because this game has combat segments with guns and it has melee segments. Now, the melee is my biggest problem with this game. It pretty much sucks, if we're being honest. When you swing, it's like your character puts his whole back into it, which I play as David Harbour. I never tried Jodie Comer, so I don't know if her gameplay plays any differently, but from what I looked up before this review, it seems like it doesn't. It's just she gets a little bit of a different story, kind of like a RE2. But unlike RE2, this game is a little bit longer. And when I beat it, you still get the full story, you still get full everything, so it's really not one of those things where it's like, shit, I gotta play this game again to get the full ending or something like that. So I feel like there was no point in going to play as her, if that makes sense. But if you guys are pissed off at that, I'm sorry, but I just really feel like it. But I do want to cover what I did love about the gameplay in this game. So the shooting, while it's not the best, is still not awful. It's a lot better than the melee for sure. But I really liked like I keep saying, the Resident Evil aspects, because I don't remember when the original game came out. I want to believe it was 1992. I never played those. And so this is a older franchise, and so I know it's done it before. It's done things probably better in the past than other modern games have. But the whole reason why I love games like Resident Evil is because I love that whole back and forth. I love going from one area and, you can't get past this because it has a lock, but then you go 10 floors up and, you found bolt cutters, so now you're backtracking to go open up that lock to see what's behind that door. I really appreciated stuff like that in this game, and I really loved aspects like that. I also want to bring up the fact that, there's no loading screens, but not for what you would think. It's because there's several segments that you will open a door and like you'll go through a corridor, for example, and it'll turn into a whole nother area. It'll be like a sinking boat, or like the whole area is on fire, and it's so seamless the way they've done it. I never had any frame drops. I believe that this game was playing at I was playing this on a PS5, so it's whatever those fidelity settings were. I never really checked it, but it never really looks bad in my opinion. And I don't know, like I don't know what I expected from this game, just from what I was hearing. Like I said, I got it release day. I was excited for it. I know it got delayed a whole lot, but I remember watching reviews for it, and I pretty much figured that I wouldn't play this game till later anyways in the summer. But I'm one of those people, if I know I'm going to play a game, I know I'm going to like it. I still like to get it, support developers, and I'm glad I did, because this game, I think, is worth your time and money. Even with the clunkiness, I really think that there is a decent story here. I think that there's decent enough gameplay if you like that whole back and forth traveling, if you like the mystery. There's a lot of stuff to read. There's a lot of puzzle elements that are really good. I'm looking at you, Hellblade 2. This is how you do good puzzles. The puzzles in this game, I really think, shine because they are not, afraid to be like, hey, you have to think about this in a little bit. But at the same time, they're also not afraid to be like, hey, this is for adults. This is like a puzzle that won't take you a second to figure out. But once you sit there and figure it out, you're like, oh man, figured it out. It's not also going to be something that's going to take you hours either. It's not going to be stupid puzzles. It's not going to be too easy. And I really love that. And now I want to cover the story. So back to where we were at the beginning, I was talking about how investigating this man's disappearance. And so this leads down a rabbit hole of him making a deal with a man called the Dark Man. And it leads through a rabbit hole, at least for my gameplay walkthrough with David Harbour's character, Carnby. And I really liked how Carnby handled some things. It kind of goes into his backstory towards, I would say, the later half of the game. And I really was loving how it kind of gets into how he used to be as a detective. So there's a case that he does where this little girl, for example, he ends up finding her because her dad kidnapped her, and he gets hired by the mother. He gives her back to the mother, but it turns out she neglected her, and I guess it led to the child's death. And just sad things like that pretty much build up on his character. Jodie Comer, on the other hand, like I said, never played as her, but I do want to touch on the fact that I didn't love what they did with this whole back and forth thing. So towards the end of the game, I would say third act, this game has 4 chapters. The first chapter is very short. The second chapter is about an hour-ish. And then the third chapter is probably the longest, and the fourth chapter is also very short. It's weird because I don't want to keep comparing to Resident Evil, but I do like how, for example, in RE2, when you play as Leon, you run into Claire. You'll get to a door and, it's locked, and Claire's behind it, and she's talking to you. In this game, you don't get that. So I never saw Jodie Comer's character. I had no idea where she was at. At the later half of the game, you do eventually run into her, so that was nice. But at the beginning of it, there's a lot of stuff that was going on and crazy stuff, and traveling to different locations and crazy ghost shit happening and creatures and stuff like that happening. And I just was sitting there the whole time thinking, so is Jodie Comer just watching me on a couch spazzing out, or is she going through her own thing, And I wonder, that is one thing I do wonder, and that's one thing that makes me think about maybe going back and playing this game one day, because I wonder, is her segments any different? Does she go through the same shit? Or in the segment that you're watching right here on the screen, is she in a different location? Does she run the different characters? And so that is something interesting that I would like to know, and that I would like to try out. But I don't really know as far as review goes, so I do hate that. But I want to pretty much just spend the rest of the time for this video just saying that you guys should try this game out. I know it's always on sale. I believe right now it's $30-$40 in the PlayStation Store at the time of recording this video. I don't know how much it is on Xbox. I haven't checked that. But this game's not bad. I kept hearing that this game was awful and that it was just, not worth your time and stuff like that. And I might would have thought differently if I'd have played this at launch day. And I kept saying that to myself, but then I kept sitting there thinking, no, I wouldn't. I don't think this game is like a 10 out of 10. I don't think it's going to hit my 10 out of 10 for this year in games, but there's a good chance it could hit my top 20. I play a lot of games. And then this year has surprised me. My top 2 games this year, I was going in so far thinking, that something like Final Fantasy VII will be my number 1, which it is. But I didn't realize how close something like Princess Peach Showtime would be right behind it. I didn't really realize how close Helldivers 2 would be right behind it. That came out and swooped everybody. Still playing that game, still loving it. And so this game just kind of came out of nowhere because I was looking at my backlog and I was like, yeah, this will be next. Let me go in and play it. And I had a lot of fun with it. Clunky gameplay aside, this game isn't awful. I don't know how it compares to the originals because I've never played them, but as a standalone game, it's not bad. It's got that fear factor, it's got that creepy element, and there's certain segments that aren't scary, but once again, kind of creepy. And I think as a horror game, while it's not the best horror game, it's still a decent horror game. And once again, for a cheaper price, I think this is definitely worth your time. And with that, I hope that you guys like and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope that you guys give this game a chance because I think it's definitely worth your time. I think it's really good. And with that, I'll catch you guys on the next one.